very much. I understand that the state law currently requires that the following announcement be read at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, city council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at the public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer. Prior to the hearing, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate they are present when their names are called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on the screen when you speak.
Councilmember David O.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Councilmember Bobby Heenan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, colleagues.
Councilmember Cindy Bass.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and colleagues and the viewing public. Good morning.
Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia.
And that is it for attendance.
Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present, and the hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Rules regarding bills number 200348, 200713, 210081, 210159, 210207, 210225, 210228, 210246, and 210247. Will the clerk please read the titles of the bills?
Bill number 200348, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500, entitled Overlay Zoning Districts, by creating the West Chestnut Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 200713, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designation of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Lehigh Avenue, Frankford Avenue, Master Street, and 6th Street. Bill number 210081, amending Chapter 9-3900 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Property License and Owner Accountability, Section A-900, entitled Property License Fees, and Chapter 14-604, entitled Accessory Use Structures, and Chapter 19-2400, entitled Hotel Room Rental Tax, to add and revise provisions related to the use of properties for limited lodging and hotel purposes and to the collection of hotel rental taxes in connection therewith. Bill number 210159, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-600, entitled Use Regulations, by amending the retail sales use category and use-specific standards, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 210207, to amend the Philadelphia zoning map by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cottman Avenue, the Montgomery County line, the Bucks County line, Interstate 95, Grant Avenue, and Roosevelt Boulevard. Bill number 210225, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, by amending Section 14-502, entitled Center City Overlay District, by establishing and adding a new sub-area within Broad Street area entitled South Broad Street Gateway, and making related changes. Bill number 210228, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Spruce Street, 5th Street, South Street, and 8th Street, all under certain terms and conditions. 210246, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain portions of land located within an area bounded by Delaware Expressway, Richmond Street, Lewis Street, Delaware Avenue, and Castor Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions. And 210247, amending the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by 63rd Street, Lansdowne Avenue, Felton Street, Haddington Lane, Edgewood Street, Lansdowne Avenue, 54th Street, Girard Avenue, 59th Street, and Callow Hill Street. And that is it for the titles of the bills, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Also, before we begin, I want to state for the record that bills numbers 200-713, 210-081, and 210-225 are being held at the request of the sponsors. Will the clerk please call the panel for the first bill, number 210246?
Paula Brumblow Burns.
Good morning, members of the Rural Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 210246, which was introduced into City Council on March 25th, 2021 by Councilmember Heenan. Bill number 210246 will amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain portions of the land located within an area bounded by Delaware Expressway, Richmond Street, Lewis Street, Delaware Avenue, and Castor Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions. The proposed bill will allow the Philadelphia Water Department to build a pre-treatment facility to prevent untreated wastewater from entering the Delaware River. There are vacant properties that are currently zoned RSA 3, residential single attached, that will become I3 heavy industrial. The City Planning Commission also reviewed a companion property bill that will allow for the city to purchase these properties. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 210246 at its meeting of April 8th, 2021 and recommended approval. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Paula. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Thank you very much, Paula, for your testimony on this bill. Will the clerk please call the next bill?
For bill number 210228, we have Paula Brumblow Burns.
Paula, you can begin your testimony on this bill.
Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 210228, which was introduced into City Council on March 18th, 2021 by Councilmember Squilla. Bill number 210228 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations in two locations within Society Hill. The first change is to fix a technical error that was made in bill number 200095 that will clarify a measurement on the block bounded by 8th Street, Lombard Street, 7th Street, and Rodman Street. This update was requested by the Law Department. The bill also reverses a zoning change made by bill number 200095 to the 500 block of Pine Street at the request of property owners in the Civic Association. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 210228 at its meeting of April 8th, 2021, and recommended approval in accord with previous commission policy. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? No seeing or hearing none. Thank you very much, Paula, for your testimony. Will the clerk please call up the next bill?
For bill number 210207, we have Paula Brumblow Burns.
Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. The easiest part I just messed up. I'm sorry. I am here to testify on bill number 210207, which was introduced into City Council on March 11th, 2021 by Councilmember O'Neill. Bill number 210207 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cotman Avenue, the Montgomery County line, the Bucks County line, Interstate 95, Grant Avenue, and Roosevelt Boulevard. This area makes up a significant portion of the 10th Councilmanic District. The proposed bill converts 14 commercial centers by downgrading the CA2 Commercial Auto District to CA1 Commercial Auto District. There are several uses that will no longer be permitted by right that include educational facilities, private clubs and nightclubs, visitor accommodations, building services, artist studios, hospitals, and religious assemblies. Additionally, takeout restaurants, transit stations, and gas stations will need special exceptions. This district contains the largest number of foreign-born residents within the city, and the CA2 classification has helped to reduce immigrants' transition by providing specialty stores, a sense of community, and business opportunities. 13 of the commercial centers will now have non-conforming uses if the zoning is changed. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 210207 at its meeting of April 8th, 2021, and recommended not for approval. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions and comments from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you, Paula, for your testimony on this bill. Will the clerk please call out the next bill?
For bill number 210247, we have Paula Brumlow Burns.
Paula, you can begin your testimony.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I can comment on my.
I'm glad. I was waiting for you.
I was
Brian.
having trouble getting my speaker working.
Councilman O'Neill.
I don't want to be lengthy. I just want to say that one thing that COVID has done is given us maybe some time to look at things, react to things, and do things we normally don't have time for. Each of these CA2 sites that are being changed to CA1 should have been CA1 from the beginning. No question about it. They're small neighborhood centers. They're not the large ones. I have not touched my CA2 sites, and it is anything but a downgrade. Talk to the people in my district. It's an upgrade. That's all. I just want to state that this has had a lot of thought, a lot of work put into it, and this will do nothing but help the neighborhoods that these sites are in. If anybody has any questions of me, I'll be here through the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman O'Neill. And as always, I know you do your due diligence, and you said probably the most important thing that could be said today is that you talk to your constituents. And so thank you very much for following up and your comments regarding this particular bill. Will the clerk just reiterate and call up the bill that was recently called up? And
Absolutely. Bill number 210247, we have Paula Brumlow Burns.
Thank you, Paula. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumlow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on Bill number 210247, which was introduced into City Council on March 25th, 2021 by Councilmember Jones. Bill number 210247 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by 63rd Street, Lansdowne Avenue, Belton Street, Haddington Lane, Edgewood Street, Lansdowne Avenue, 54th Street, Girard Avenue, 59th Street, and Callow Hill Street. This bill was part of the community remapping process that implements changes from the West District Plan in cooperation with the local Carroll Park neighborhood within the 4th Council District. This is a corrective rezoning guided by the goals of the plan to match zoning designations to existing uses that will protect single-family housing, reflect existing multifamily housing, and update industrial and commercial zoning. Specific attention was given to commercial areas to support strong clusters of commercial activity, encouraging multifamily uses near public transit, and updating the zoning of schools to ICMX to allow for community schools. The process for remapping had started prior to March of last year, but was finalized as we worked remotely. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 210247 at its meeting of April 8th, 2021, and recommended approval. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Paula. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? I'm going hearing none. Thank you, Paula, for your testimony. Will the clerk please call up the next bill?
For bill number 200713, we have Paula Brumblow Burns.
Go ahead, Paula. You can begin your testimony. You are on mute, Paula.
I'm sorry, I actually thought I had turned myself off mute.
It's okay.
Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 200713, which was introduced into City Council on December 10th, 2020 by Council Member Kiona Sanchez. Bill number 200713 will amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Lehigh Avenue, Frankford Avenue, Master Street, and 6th Street. I would like to note that the short title is larger than the area to be rezoned, which is within a smaller boundary of Front Street, Kensington Street, Lehigh Avenue, 6th Street, and Burke Street, which is primarily consistent with the Norris Square neighborhood. The proposed bill will reduce nonconformities by correctively zoning single-family and multifamily residential blocks, while providing other properties to take advantage of the mixed income housing bonus, where blocks will be rezoned RM1 residential mixed use, CMX2 and CMX 2.5 commercial mixed use. The bill also updates the zoning to parks and open space for parcels that are currently nonprofit neighborhood gardens and green spaces. Additionally, we'll also remove I2 medium industrial zoning from the impacted area, which is one of the goals in all of our neighborhood zoning changes. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 200713 at its meeting of April 8th, 2021, and recommended approval with amendments. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Paula. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing or hearing none, thank you, Paula. Will the clerk please call up the next bill?
For the first panel on bill number 200348, we have Paula Brumblow Burns and Kyle Flood.
Paula, you can begin.
Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 200348, which was introduced into City Council on June 4th, 2020 by Council Member Johnson. Bill number 200348 amends the zoning code by adding a new overlay district entitled West Chestnut Street Overlay District. This overlay as proposed would apply to portions of the south side of the 2000 block of Chestnut Street. Bill number 200348 is intended to allow for the redevelopment of the former PHA office building and parking lot located at 2012 to 2018 Chestnut Street, according to the plans proposed by Altera Property Group in consultation with PHA and the Center City Residents Association. The developer has offered amendments to the bill after working with the Center City Residents Association. While the Planning Commission wants to see a building at this location, there are significant concerns regarding the bill as introduced and its proposed amendments. The first concern is that we asked that the project team in June of last year to add this into the Center City overlay, as we do for all overlays within the boundaries of the CTR, for easier code clarification and order. The base zoning is CMX4 commercial mixed use, which has a base floor area ratio of 500% with up to 250% in bonuses for mixed income housing. Other bonuses can be used for a maximum of 1,200%. The applicant is proposing the maximum FAR with the addition of workforce housing, which is currently not a bonus option and not providing any other bonuses. The amendment specifically requires that if any exterior design changes occur, they must go to civic design review. The code already would refer any changes to license and inspections and CDR, and that since this process currently exists in the code and PCPC regulations, it is not necessary to repeat in the bill. The project team is requesting that off-site parking be increased from 1,000 feet, approximately 1/5 of a mile, to 3,000 feet, approximately 3/5 of a mile, We feel that distance is too large to memorialize in any part of the code. The project team has also written into this overlay that they have the ability to revisit their parking requirements after the building is occupied and change the terms of what the building permit includes. This appears to be an attempt to exempt from a requirement that they agreed to meet in order to construct the building. This also may prove a challenge to license and inspections in their review of the project and future uses on the property. We feel that this should go through the traditional zoning review process if they choose not to meet the parking requirements after the building is occupied. The project team also would like to exempt themselves from loading requirements and meet the loading needs of the building on street. We acknowledge that Chestnut has a dedicated bus lane and Ionic Street is a dead end. We requested to help draft more specific language that sets this as a unique situation, which would allow for a loading space exemption. We would ask that the project team work with Streets Department and PPA to determine if they will approve this as a loading location for the building. We also recommend that the bill not become effective until Streets Department has approved of the loading plan and PPA has indicated that they will become a signed loading space. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 200348 at its meeting of April 8th, 2021, and recommended disapproval even with the proposed amendments, as this bill is spot zoning for a specific development project and has some technical changes that should be corrected before passage. The Commission sees the Zoning Board of Adjustment as a better path for approval of the project on site. I would like to know that there are new amendments to the amendments I talked about in this bill that were completed Friday after business hours, and they have addressed some of our issues. I would be happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you, Carl Flood.
Councilmember, we actually have one quick change. I believe Calvin Jeremiah was able to join and will speak for the PHA.
Calvin Jeremiah.
Good morning, council members. I am Calvin Jeremiah, the president and CEO of the Philadelphia Housing Authority. PHA fully supports the proposed development plan for 2012 Chestnut Street, a development that presents a great opportunity for the city, for PHA, and the residents PHA serves. The Philadelphia Housing Authority, as you know, Councilman, has been working on the project at 2012 Chestnut Street with Altera Property Group and Real Capital Management, the development team, for several years now. In developing new affordable housing, PHA strives to locate affordable units throughout the city. Our reason for doing so is to ensure that affordable units are not concentrated in any one section of the city, and to provide a wide range of housing options for Philadelphia residents with low incomes. PHA also believes that integrating affordable housing with market rate development accomplishes many goals. Mixed income communities, especially in high opportunity areas like Center City, tend to have a better economic opportunity for affordable residents, resulting in better socioeconomic outcomes for families with low incomes. When PHA proposed the 2012 Chestnut Street, dispose of 2012 Chestnut Street, it was with a clear understanding that the final development must contain workforce affordable housing units. PHA's overall mission is to build and maintain affordable housing in the city of Philadelphia, either directly or through partners. The proposed project allows us to achieve both objectives, while at the same time allowing us to reposition a property that has been a blight and an eyesore on the neighborhood for far too long. PHA could have sold this property outright with no conditions. We chose this path because this location provides an excellent opportunity to accomplish our goals in an area in which very little affordable housing exists. Over 20% or 32 units of the units in this development will be affordable. The income levels of tenants are based on the levels required to obtain the mixed income zoning bonus, keeping a consistency throughout the city in terms of affordable income requirements, which is 60% of the area median income. PHA anticipates that most residents will not own cars, but the off-site parking spaces will allow those that do, to park within the neighborhood without paying exorbitant parking fees, which is consistent with the workforce development housing model. PHA believes that the design of this building is first class, and I believe that it will be a source of pride for the residents who live there and to the residents of the neighborhood at large. While the rents may be affordable, the building design and amenities are first class, and all units are similarly appointed regardless of the rent. Similarly, the anticipated retail or restaurant uses will add desirable amenities for the residents and then live in this portion of Chestnut Street. The building is in keeping with other newer buildings in this neighborhood in terms of the bulk and massing and the zoning changes that will permit the construction that have been vetted by the local community RCO. I am confident the development team is committed to getting this project done, and I am very pleased that they have an extensive engagement with the community and were able to successfully prepare a community benefits agreement. The potential for a long delay going through the zoning process without the support of the community would have caused irreparable economic harm to the project, endangering the creation of affordable housing in this high opportunity area. I want to thank you for recognizing the need and working on a creative solution to solve the problem of lack of affordable housing throughout our city. I look forward to working with you all, our mayor, and our partners to continue developing much needed affordable housing in Philadelphia. Accordingly, we are respectfully asking for the City Council's full support of this development. Your support of this important project will be very much appreciated. And with that, I'll take whatever questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions and comments from members of the committee? I just want to go on the record as saying, and I am the sponsor of the bill. This bill has been a long time coming, a very, very long and thorough process, particularly when it comes to community involvement and the developer working in partnership with CCRA, which is Center City Residents Association, totally changed the design of the building to meet the needs and address the issues of the constituents from CCRA, which are the neighbors that live in Center City. But also, Kelvin Jeremiah, I just want to also acknowledge you for, again, making sure that we address issues around affordable and workforce housing in the city of Philadelphia. We all know that's prime real estate on Chestnut Street. And for you and your team to work in partnership with Altair, just to make sure that people have an opportunity to live anywhere in the city of Philadelphia, regardless of their zip code or their checkbook or their pocketbook. We thank the two of you for working in partnership. And also, I know that planning has asked for some additional compromises and concessions, which we have seen have been put forth with the last amendments. And then I just encourage to be upfront, the Planning Commission moving forward. This has been a 4-year process. And so if they weren't at the table, from the onset in terms of working in partnership with the community, that's not on it. That's not on the individuals who put forth the project. I'm going to put it out there. I believe that's on planning in terms of doing their due diligence. But there have been some amendments from a compromising standpoint. And hopefully we'll have this opportunity to move forward. And so I just wanted to put that out there and ask for the clerk to please call the next panel.
For the second panel, for bill number 200348, we have Richard Gross and Charles Robin.
You unmute me? Good morning. My name is Richard Gross, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the Center City Residents Association, the RCO responsible for consideration of the project at 2012 Chestnut Street. I'm here today testifying in support of ordinance number 200348. As an introductory matter, I would note that CCRA has a policy disfavoring ordinances for specific projects, and preferring that developers utilize the zoning variance process instead. That process provides for a more orderly adjustment to the zoning code. CRA was persuaded that the developers met the standards for an exception to our zoning variance policy because of the substantial benefit of workforce housing to which the developers are committed, a policy which runs with the land and is enforceable in perpetuity. The developers also responded positively to CCRA's architectural concerns about the building, including massing, materials, skyplane compliance, loading, street frontage, and usage. This site has been vacant and an eyesore for a very long time. When the developers approached CCRA about the project, a task force was appointed to work with them, which they did for over a year. The resulting project resulted in a superb community benefits agreement, was exposed to the community at a public meeting attended by 25 neighbors, none of whom raised any objections, and was unanimously approved by the CCRA board. The co-chair of the task force, Charles Robin, will testify after me and describe in more detail the project, which resulted from a year's worth of work and the response of the developers to the concerns raised by CCRA on behalf of the community. Finally, I would note that the Planning Commission reached out to us recently to raise some issues which they believe would improve the ordinance. We discussed their concerns in detail, and I'm pleased to note that the developers have responded positively to amending the ordinance to accommodate those concerns. This process has worked well in this case, and the resulting project is one which substantially improves our community. We urge the adoption of the ordinance as amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the next witness?
Charles Rubin.
Okay, can everybody hear me, please?
Yes, Charles.
Okay, thank you. I first thank everybody for allowing us to testify here. By introduction, I've been on the Center City Residents Association's board of directors for the last 25 years, and I've chaired many task forces over that time. I will start out by saying I am very, very proud of this project. It's been a collaborative effort between Councilman Johnson's office, PHA, Center City Residents Associations, and it has not been an easy task. The first thing we really had to do is work out a design, and we went through 4 reiterations. And the beginning design just was not acceptable. We have on our task force Janice Woodcock, who's a former member of the City Planning Commission, Tim Kerner, a well-respected architect, 2 attorneys, and myself, who's a realtor, and tried just to shepherd everybody through this long process. Finally, through the pandemic, and it wasn't easy, we came up with a design that everyone was agreed upon. It does a lot of positive things. It keeps commercial on the first floor, streetscape, and such. The second job we had to do is work through a community benefits agreement, which also was not easy. And within this, I'm very proud to say we were able to incorporate minority workforce. This is something that we are extremely proud of. I want to put this out is that most importantly, CCR worked to lower the AMI for a much more inclusive and targeted city of Philadelphia population. We could have gone where it would have been the federal and Altera property joined with us for this more targeted population, which I'm super proud of. We worked for the property to be green, streetscape, exterior maintenance, trash, deliveries, a loading, which I'll touch on in just a second. So working through this community benefits agreement was not an easy task. One of the things I'll just say, what catapulted us more so was a few statements from some very important people. John Ree from Altera Property, we had Zoom meetings, about 3 or 4 of them over the course, and his experience in developing affordable housing in New York and elsewhere in the country really said you need a very well-designed and productive and inclusive property. And that was one of the major reasons we went with this design. Second is that in a meeting with Mr. Richardson, Philadelphia Housing Authority, has said that he could have sold outright, but he said that it's PHA's desire to maintain, control, and have affordable housing at this site. And then super important is that Mr. Calvin Jeremiah really said this, and I think this should be in the notes, is that in his experience, I don't want to speak for him, but this is my notes, is that in his experiences, 9 times out of 10, when certain properties like this go through the ZBA process, 9 times out of 10, there are appeals, which would delay this project for a 12-month period, if not longer. And with that testimony, that's what made the Center City Residents Association go with this zoning ordinance, because we have a long-standing policy of not going through the zoning ordinances. And I think I can speak up and say nobody on this meeting tonight, nobody in the city of Philadelphia doesn't feel that affordable housing is not needed in this time and day. And that's what really put us through to get through to craft this ordinance. We'd rather go through the ZBA, but we feel it's important, and Mr. Jeremiah's testimony that his professional is that 9 times out of 10 there's appeals. We didn't want to see that. So we worked through a design, 4 iterations. We worked through a community benefits agreement, and we worked through an ordinance. There were a lot of hiccups during the way. It was not an easy process. We were able to come out with 20% workforce housing and a well-designed building. And in the last week, we've had meetings with the Philadelphia PCPC regarding their concerns. And we really think we worked through their concerns. I would love to touch base on the parking, because I think it's actually a true great model, because different properties, I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for over 30 years, close to 30 years. And different properties use parking different ways. And you take a property that is a high-end, which selling condominiums or so, yes, they absolutely need to parking to sell those. But certain properties, we want to go green. And we think we struck the right balance with this parking, which if you want to, I'll go into more detail. But I don't want to keep on talking. But overall, the Center City Residents Association is very proud of working with the PHA, Alterra Properties, and Councilman Johnson's office. I think we really struck a beautiful building, well-designed, a well-balanced community benefits agreement. Okay, and the last thing I want to say, Councilman Johnson, I know you, and this is just a personal note. It's just, I just want to take this time to thank Joshua Harris from your office, because this was not an easy process. There were a lot of setbacks, and there were times where I spoke to Mr. Harris. He said, stay in there, Charles. Stick with it. It's not going to be easy, but Councilman Johnson's priority is affordable housing, and you're doing a good job. And with his words of encouragement through this long pandemic period, I think we did a superb job. I would thank everybody. Thank you very much, Councilman.
You're welcome. Any questions and comments from members of the committee? One, I want to take a moment to thank Charles and Rich really for doing your due diligence and really working to make sure that this process is diverse, it's inclusive, and also just reflect what the city of Philadelphia should really be all about when we talk about giving people an opportunity to live wherever they want to live in the city of Philadelphia, regardless of their checkbook and their pocketbook. And we appreciate you just for staying on top of the case, the two of you, and making sure that this is a project that everyone could be proud of. So I just want to acknowledge that for the record. Done plenty of work with your team in the past on several different projects. But this was one of the key projects that I'm definitely proud of, because again, most of the parts of my district is dealing with significant gentrification. and I'm born and raised in Point Breeze all my life. University of Penn grad, still live inside my neighborhood of Point Breeze. But I can honestly say it's always a balance between long-term residents losing their home, also people who want to move in the neighborhood having the opportunity regardless of how much money that they make. And so the two of you stepping up to the plate saying, hey, listen, we want to make sure this is a diverse and inclusive project. So let's figure this thing out. I just want to say hats off to you and thank you for staying on the front line and making sure that this project moves forward. And so I just want to say that for the record, Charles and Richard. With that being said, if there are any other comments or questions for members of the committee?
Councilmember Johnson, this is Mark Squilla.
Councilman Squilla?
Yes, I just want to say, I want to commend you for your work and effort on this. I know it's not easy, especially getting everybody to a point of agreement. Both sides normally are far apart in the beginning, but it's a sign of a true leader when you're able to get all sides to the table, work out the best possible project. And knowing, too, that an ordinance sometimes allows you to even dig down deeper and put different protections in place than a variance would have. Sometimes you don't realize you open up a variance and you give that variance there, and then a developer, not this one in particular, but some developer may come and put changes in afterwards after a variance is approved that may not be the intent of a project. So I've seen that before in my district. So sometimes an ordinance, you're able to really class down on those things and, being able to get both the developer, the community, PHA, and the affordability part all into it is a great job and an example to all of us to follow. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Squilla. And I just want to, something I didn't mention, there's a 40% minority participation in workforce agreement that's a part of this as well that wasn't mentioned. Obviously, people may not know that when you do go through the ordinance process, there is a EOP plan where the team meets every month just to monitor, make sure we're reaching our diversity and inclusion goals and making sure that the things that are agreed upon through the ordinance process are actually followed up on. And so, Mark, you actually highlight some things that are actually beneficial when you do get all the parties to the table and some of the things that do take place from an accountability standpoint when you do go through the ordinance process. And so thank you, Councilman Squilla. With that being said, I thank everyone who testified. Will the clerk please call the next bill? For the record, I also want to acknowledge the presence of Councilwoman Maria Kiona Sanchez and Councilman Brian O'Neill.
And the first panel for bill number 210159, we have Paula Brumlow-Burns.
Paula, you ready? Councilman?
I am.
Excuse me 1 second. Councilman Kathy Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I just wanted to offer brief remarks prior to Paula giving her testimony on bill number 210159, which is a bill that I introduced after working closely with planning after our December 1st Rules Committee hearing last year. And in that committee hearing, we were discussing the proposed Winfield overlay that was offered and introduced by our colleague, Councilmember Jones, related to the proliferation of certain types of convenience stores setting up on one commercial corridor, but they were all selling drug paraphernalia, when in actuality, they applied for zoning permits to sell only convenience items. And they applied for permits to only sell convenience items. So we also discussed in that committee meeting the prevalence of the opening of these stores across commercial corridors in the city of Philadelphia. So that particular overlay was specific to Winfield, but we were told that this issue has been going on across the city of Philadelphia for quite some time. And I want to underscore and highlight that these stores are setting up without the proper zoning permits and sometimes without health certifications. So to address these concerns, I worked with the Department of Planning to create a bill that will prohibit stores and other businesses without, and this is the key, without the proper zoning review and permits from continuing to sell drug paraphernalia without going through the proper application and community process. This bill will also update the definition of drug paraphernalia in our code for the first time in 45 years. This bill was crafted with input from the departments who have been struggling to properly enforce. And also, when we went on a walking tour recently with my district council member on 54th Street, Councilmember Curtis Jones and our state rep Morgan Cephas, and we had representatives from the administration, including our managing director, Tumar Alexander, our commerce director, Mr. Michael Rashid, our L&I commissioner, Mr. DePietro, as well as representatives from health and police, particularly the captain for the 19th. And we saw examples of these stores operating in that community, and particularly on that commercial corridor, the addition of 3 of those stores within a few month period. So we are really struggling to get a handle on this process. And we have heard from communities across our city who have told us that these unregulated sales really impact the quality of their commercial corridors. And unfortunately, anecdotally, we've been hearing that some of these stores are linked to some of the illegal drug activity that's happening in the community. So, we must address these issues to really protect the health and safety of our communities. And I wanted to just quickly thank all the RCOs and the ward leaders who were on the calls with us over the past several weeks. In the evenings, we held calls for all the RCOs. And I'm grateful that you all have joined us today to really hear about this legislation. And I'm looking forward to the testimony we'll receive. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues. And thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Paula, you can begin your testimony.
Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Heenan.
Councilman Bobby
I'm sorry
Heenan.
to interrupt. May I have the floor before we begin with the testimony?
Absolutely, Councilman.
All right, thank you. And excuse my ignorance, but I want to thank the lead sponsor of this bill, which I'm going along for the ride, as well as Councilmember Parker, because as it was stated by our chair of the Rules Committee, Councilman Johnson, earlier in this hearing, it is the will of our community and the people that we represent who are raising these issues. They are our true kitchen table. All right. They are the ones who set the policy for our neighborhoods, especially when it comes to the quality of life. And quality of life starts with zoning here in the city of Philadelphia. And I know planning is quite aware of that. And, we as neighborhoods changes and neighborhoods grow, the quality of life is affected in certain ways. Commercial corridors are the lifeline and veins to our neighborhoods, right? Because it gives the opportunities for small businesses, which represents about 85% of our businesses in the city of Philadelphia, right in our neighborhoods, adjacent to our neighborhoods, adjacent to where I grew up, adjacent to where my mother lives right now. And when we have uses that are appearing by right, that should be regulated uses. All right. I am so happy that Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson sees the quality of life being destroyed in our neighborhoods. We, as commercial corridors in the city of Philadelphia, have just invested, City Council has just invested $10 million over the past 2 years, another $2 million submitted in this year's budget, and to have regulated uses by right on our commercial corridors are unacceptable. And they're appearing in different ways. I have 5 candy stores that sell very little candy. 2 of the 5 have 2 different names. Sign controls, which is zoning issues, are not being enforced. It looks like Vegas. Hours of operation. Some of them are 24 hours. Some of them will shut down as long as somebody's walking in, which could be 2 o'clock in the morning. There's plexiglass as soon as you walk in, which is illegal. They're selling black market cigarettes. And as the sponsor of the bill, Catherine Gilmore Richardson, had noted, Some are, pointing to illegal drug sales. All that affects the quality of life. And I'm hoping by regulating this zoning, these issues with zoning and having it being recognized in our zoning code gives the tools to enforcement to L&I, which I hope and pray L&I enforces, because I know they're overworked and understaffed, because not too many people are walking out of these candy shops with Swedish fish. So thank you to the sponsor, and thank you for the committee for your time.
Thank you, Councilman Heenan. Any other questions or comments from the committee before we get started?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Kathy Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my apologies. And I do want to thank my co-sponsors, Councilmember Heenan and Councilmember Parker, for all of their support. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Paula, you can begin your testimony.
Okay. Good morning, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumlow Burns, City Planner with the legislative team of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on Bill number 210159, which was introduced into City Council on February 11th, 2021 by Council members Gilmore Richardson, Parker, and Heenan. Bill number 210159 amends Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, titled Zoning and Planning, to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-600, entitled Use Regulations, by amending the retail sales use category and use-specific standards, all under certain terms and conditions. The proposed bill revises the definition of drug paraphernalia, which will continue to remain a regulated use in the zoning code. There have been significant changes in commonly used illegal drugs, the methods by which they are consumed, and the Commonwealth law dealing with drug use. By removing an outdated reference from the zoning code and adding more specific terms, we will enable the Philadelphia Department of License and Inspections to carry out more robust inspections and enforcement actions. While the city is preempted from regulating the sale of tobacco and tobacco-related products outside of putting them in the zoning use classifications, this bill does not limit any tobacco-related uses or sales. This legislation provides definitions of specific drug paraphernalia which are not accessory to the use of tobacco products. The code provides a list of uses that includes bongs, dab rigs, glass pipes bowl, grinders, herbal infusers, methoscope or love rose, and water pipes. This bill does not address items that would traditionally be accessory to tobacco uses, which include pipe cleaners, ashtrays, lighters, or rolling papers. This bill also does not include everyday items that have multiple legal uses and occasionally accessory drug uses. For example, spoons, baggies, and Brillo pads. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 210159 at its meeting of March 18th, 2021, and recommended approval. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Well, one, I just want to acknowledge Councilman Kathy Gilmore Richardson around her leadership with this particular legislation. A lot of the products that are being sold really are predatory in nature because they're basically in areas that are low income and poor areas, and basically taking advantage of and making a profit off of the addictions and the social ills of the people who are there, which are predominantly Black and brown people. And so it is definitely a quality of life issue, echoing the words of Councilman Bobby Heenan. And I just want to say thank you, Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson, for your leadership around this particular issue. Any questions or comments of members of the committee? Hearing none, will the clerk call the next panel to testify on this bill?
We have Heather Miller and Linda Colwell-Smith. Is Heather Miller present? And if so, will you please unmute yourself and begin your testimony? If not, Linda Colwell-Smith, you may unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. You can go ahead and begin your testimony, Linda.
Thank you, Councilman. Well, good morning, members of the Rules Committee. My name is Linda Caldwell-Smith. I am Vice President of the Home Circle Civic Association in Northeast Philadelphia. Thank you for this opportunity to express our association's support for Bill number 210159. We have been concerned for some time about the number of stores selling various forms of drug paraphernalia within our civic association's boundaries. While the number of retail stores selling such items outright is small, some retailers, we've noticed, that are pressed to maintain sales due to the economic challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic are quietly selling such merchandise under the counter, thus avoiding not only sales taxes but public scrutiny. If I may share a recent example, a neighborhood store located on the direct route to an elementary school ostensibly sold phones and tobacco products, but was also selling drug paraphernalia, including bongs, glass pipes, blunts, and other items. The worst ones being sold, though, were soda and juice cans with false bottoms, which could be used to either hide illegal drugs or drug paraphernalia, or even be purchased with drugs in them. And this store would sell these items to anyone regardless of age. Because of the then current law, it was hard for Home Circle Civic to get this store shut down. But for one day, when the store was caught selling cigarettes to young children. Now, if the store's owner and clerk hadn't made that dumb mistake, it might still be open. That is why we need this bill, which updates Title 14 to reflect the current kinds of drug paraphernalia and updates the zoning code to allow communities like ours a legal way to limit the number of such retail establishments and control the negative impact these stores can have on our neighborhoods. We urge the committee to endorse this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the next witness?
We have Keith Harris. You are on. Please unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Before Keith starts, I'm going to call on Councilman Kathy Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Linda Caldwell-Smith and the entire Home Circle Civic Association for their testimony and for participating in the community conversations we had with all the RCOs and the ward leaders. Thank you very much.
Clerk, please call the next witness.
Good.
Is Keith Harris on? If not, we have Matos. Please unmute yourself. You are on and available to give your testimony. And finally, we have a representative from the Strawberry Mansion Community Concern. If you are on, please unmute yourself and begin your testimony. And that is it for the speakers, Mr. Chair.
I think Benita, are you here to provide testimony? I can't hear you. You may be on mute, Benita. I think you may have technical difficulties, Benita. Yeah, we can't hear you. Brett, is there anyone else here for public testimony?
That is it for bill number 210159. We may now move on to public comment.
I want to acknowledge Councilman Bobby Heenan and then Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I, too, want to thank Linda Caldwell-Smith, who's an incredible community activist, registered community organization vice president, and one of the very successful organizations in my district, as well as Mayfair Bid who submitted written testimony. I want to thank Donnie Smith, who's the executive director. And again, want to say thank you to the bill's sponsor, Kathy Gilmore Richardson, for getting all the community organizations together to discuss this serious quality of life issue. So thank you.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson, and then Councilman David O.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go through and just say for the record, the witnesses that submitted written testimony and those who were attempting to give testimony today, but wanted to thank Heather Miller from Longcrest Community Association, Dee Dukes from Winfield Residents Association. Again, thank you to Linda and Home Circle Civic, Strawberry Mansion Community Concern. Benita, I'm hopeful that we can hear from you. We appreciate the written testimony that was submitted. Keith Harris, 28th Ward Leader. Carlos Matos, 19th Ward Leader, written testimony. Roberto Rodriguez, Esperanza Housing and Economic Development. Donnie Smith, Executive Director of Mayfair Bid. As my colleague, Councilmember Heenan stated, Michelle Schley, 17th Ward Leader, Allison Weiss, Solo Germantown Civic, Shantae Lindsay, 42nd Ward Committee Person, Rick Sawyer, Executive Director, the Philadelphia Association of Community Development Corporations, and Sheila Howard from Upward North Neighbors Association. We thank you all so much for your testimony and your written testimony in support of this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Councilman David O.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have a comment. It is a question, but I don't know if it's a fair question, but it's probably more of a comment. But I would like to see if there's a response from Paula Brumlow Burns. I do support medical marijuana. I do not support recreational use of drugs of any sorts. I just don't. And I know those are issues that our city faces. I support quality of life crimes, enforcing them, all of them. And I know that is an issue in our city. And so while I support this ordinance, I am curious because there are issues about the legalization of recreational use of marijuana in our city. I have been told by numerous police officers and supervisors that they have been instructed not to arrest open-air drug dealers under the idea that persons who are addicted to drugs need to access drugs. I find all this very confusing and very difficult. First of all, I don't understand what is that policy. In other words, it is a very confused policy as far as I'm concerned. If police officers are not to arrest open-air drug dealers, and the drug dealers know they're not going to be arrested, and we have an influx of drug-addicted persons from all over this region to our city, we are faced with gun violence, shootings, and murders in this entire situation. So, where is the city in terms of its overall policy? How can you enforce one set of laws while allowing, gross violations of the law to occur? I don't know if that's a fair question to you, but perhaps you can share some insights with me.
I cannot, of course, answer things regarding how the police operate, how the district attorney operates. But one of the things that the Planning Commission can see is how can we make our neighborhoods better? And while drug paraphernalia does exist, what we wanted to do was make it more, put it allowed as a matter of right kind of use.
I agree.
Within a medical marijuana dispensary.
I agree with that portion.
So
I agree with the bill. I like the bill. I'm just saying, how does it jive with everything else?
I'm going to say we take one step at a time, and we try to take this as a big problem, and we take one step a day or one step with each bill to try and fix the problem. I did not answer your question at all, but I answered something.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
I don't really have the answer, but I'm going to try.
Yes, thank you. All right. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilman O, I think, and I lead from the center, I think it's the push-pull that we all deal with in this day and age. And honestly, myself and Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson just had a similar conversation around that push-pull and that balance, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, I do understand your question. Any other questions and comments from members of the committee? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Kathy Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, quickly, I just wanted to thank our colleague, Councilmember O, for his question, because for me, I think this is important to do around the time of where we are with budget too, because a lot of this rests on the fact that we need enforcement and proper enforcement to deal with this issue around ensuring that the stores that do not have the proper zoning permits or house certifications are dealt with in the appropriate way. So yes, enforcement will have to be a part of this through L&I and through health, because a lot of these stores are lacking the proper zoning permits or health certifications to operate in the manner they are currently operating. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Benita, go ahead. You want to do your testimony?
Okay, thank you. I was like, oh, okay.
Sure.
So I just wanted to say good morning to the chairman and to the Rules Committee and to Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. So we definitely appreciate this bill, and I'm here to testify as the Director of Strawberry Mansion Community Concern on Bill number 210159. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Drug paraphernalia and the retail locations that sell these products continue to have a destructive and deleterious effect on the social, economic, educational, and safety aspects of our inner city communities. The illicit use of drugs such as K2, wet drugs, those dipped in PCP, heroin, fentanyl, and opioids, oxycodone, and Percocet are examples of items that utilize drug paraphernalia in order to deliver the intended purpose of getting high. As such, drug paraphernalia has a direct causal link to spreading drug addiction and increasing crime throughout various Philadelphia communities. And although there are some legitimate medical uses for certain drug paraphernalia, e.g. medical marijuana, unfortunately, these products make their way into the hands of those who continue to use them for illegal purposes. Bill number 210159 attempts to bring to the attention of Philadelphians, the legislative body of City Council and the House of Representatives, as well as the Senate and Congress, that the proliferation of drug paraphernalia stores must stop. At a time when the world is being ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic, certain Philadelphia neighborhoods are also simultaneously battling the opioid crisis and the rising number of deaths due to opioid overdoses. We hear the mantra, Black Lives Matter, yet the areas that have been hardest hit are those that are predominantly African American. Therefore, in the spirit of Black Lives Matter movement, how can we expect our Black youth to be successful if we knowingly allow businesses to enter our communities and again decimate any and all opportunities for their economic or wealth growth? And just like the rapid spread of the coronavirus, if we do nothing and ignore the rampant proliferation of drug paraphernalia stores that are quickly spreading to the 4th and other councilmanic districts, then it will only be a matter of time before there is also a very real correlation between drug paraphernalia stores and the increase in illicit drug activity, violence, crime, and death in those respective areas. Property values will begin to decline in these councilmanic districts as the streets become filled with litter and many of the neighborhood buildings begin to look decayed. Additionally, and most importantly, your college-bound students will be at a greater risk of drug addiction if you do not get a handle on the ongoing drug crisis that is in part perpetuated by the current and steady stream of available drug paraphernalia. Due to the perceived vulnerability of predominantly African-American neighborhoods and a documented weakness of the city enforcing its laws and codes, amoral business owners flock to certain areas in Philadelphia, open drug paraphernalia businesses, and target African-American children before they reach 6 years of age. We continue to engage in a war for the survival of our children as well as communities, and it is time to take a serious stand. As I have stated in previous testimony before the City Council, as well as state and federal leaders, there were serious consequences of ignoring the proliferation of stopping those locations and malt liquor stores. Now we must add drug paraphernalia stores to that list as well. Continuing to permit an excessive amount of nuisance businesses to set up shop will only result in irreversible destruction of various Philadelphia neighborhoods. So in conclusion, please let your actions outweigh any political rhetoric. Please vote to support this bill and help save the lives of your constituents as well as future generations of Philadelphians at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, just wanted to thank Benita Cummings and the Strawberry Mansion community for their testimony, for their support, and for participating in the community conversations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, at this time, the committee will take a brief pause to allow members of the public who have registered for the public comment to join us at this virtual meeting. Have signed up for public comment. The clerk will call your name, and once called, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
We have Zasha Morales Jose commenting on bill number 200713. You may unmute yourself at the beginning.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Sasha Morales Jose. I am the Director of Neighborhood Development at Norris Square Community Alliance, CDC. Norris Square Community Alliance has been in the forefront of affordable housing development in the Norris Square neighborhood for over 35 years. We continue to carry our mission by providing housing, education, and economic opportunities to the residents and neighbors of this community. In August 2020, a group of residents met with us to request assistance in the rezoning of their properties. Our neighborhood has been aggressively gentrified in a manner that is not equitable, and long-term residents are unable to manage the properties effectively due to the incorrect zoning categories. Developers are taking advantage of the current zoning to underpay properties at a single-family price and later request zoning variants to build multifamily units. We believe this process is robbing neighbors from an equitable share of the wealth of their neighborhood. On the affordable housing front, the CDC must incur in additional expenses and time to produce affordable housing due to the current zoning of the properties available for affordable development. For the last 9 months, we have been engaged in a participatory process with the community identifying properties that were affected by the changing zoning of 2012. Most of these properties are businesses and multifamily units that are currently zoned as single family in the boundaries of the NSCA RCO. They de facto participated of several meetings with the community and did a walkthrough of the neighborhood with the residents affected by this situation. We are formally requesting a corrective zoning for our properties in the Norris Square catchment area to be able to effectively serve the community, have equitable development, and provide our residents a fair chance to stay in their neighborhood. We're also, as an RCO, requesting that the zoning gets corrected for those properties that are suited to be multifamily and commercial in our neighborhood. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments, members of the committee? Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be recognized on this particular bill if there's no one else.
Councilwoman Maria Kiona Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my colleagues. And I want to thank Michelle Cabrera at Norris Square, as well as Sasha for their work and the Planning Commission in particular. As we looked at as was mentioned, the South Kensington neighborhood, and particularly some of the development that's going on in the area, I thought it was important that we not only respond to the North Square community, but we have been meeting with about 6 RCOs in the area and really trying to manage a conversation about what does equitable development look like and how do we support long-term residents and shape new development so that folks can choose to stay, but at the same time can maximize the equity that they have on their properties. This process, as all of my colleagues know, particularly district council people, this is not easy. But because of the work and the proactive nature in which both the planning worked with North Square Civic and the other RCOs, along with our long-term vision for South Kensington, our work with the Philadelphia Housing Authority to allocate hundreds of properties to long-term affordability, as well as our work with the Land Bank and others around affordability, I think this bill in particular puts us in a better spot. And so I want to thank all of the folks involved. Unfortunately, we still have some technical amendments to this bill, so I'm going to ask the chair to hold it to our next scheduled meetings to a date certain to allow the Planning Commission to finalize all of the requests and technicalities required in such a comprehensive bill. But once again, just really want to thank the neighbors and the residents. Many of you know this is not only my district, it is my neighborhood. We've had some really complicated conversations. And, you know, I really appreciate the fact that this process helped us to get to a better place and a common vision for our community. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues. As I said, we will hold it to a date certain to allow all the technical amendments from the Planning Commission to be submitted. We'll amend it in the committee at our next scheduled meeting and look forward to moving this bill forward and ensuring equitable development in South Kensington. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Sanchez. Is there anyone else here to testify whose name has not yet been called? Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, I want to thank all the panels and witnesses for their participation today. We value your input. I now invite all panels and witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will now pause the proceedings briefly as multiple participants leave the hearing. The public hearing of the Committee on Rules. We will now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bills before this committee today. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate they are present when their names are called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak.
Councilmember Bobby Heaton.
I am present. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members, and thank you for all those who testified today.
Councilmember Brian O'Neill.
Present. I would also like to thank the chair for running another great meeting.
Councilmember Cindy Bass.
Good morning. Great hearing. Good information. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Great bill.
Councilmember David O.
I am present. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, colleagues.
Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez.
Thank you, council members. I'm present.
And Councilmember Mark Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. I'm present.
And that is it for the roll, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We will now start our public meeting. The chair recognizes Councilor Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 210246.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 210246 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Bobby Heenan seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 210246 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the bill, all those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Any nays? Okay, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 210-228.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 210228 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 210228 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes has it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on bill number 210207.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the bill number 210207 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Brian O'Neill seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 210207 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 210247. Councilman Squilla, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. I offer an amendment to bill number 210247. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 210247 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 210247 be approved. All those in favor by the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 210247 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 210247 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the bill number 210247 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 210247 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on on the amendment to bill number 200348.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 200348. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 200348 be approved.
Second.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Brian O'Neill seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 200348 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 200348 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 200348 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the bill number 200348 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Brian O'Neill seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200348 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 210159.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the bill number 210159 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmer Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 210159 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Before we conclude this meeting, please let for the record reflect that bills number 200713, 210081, and 210225 are being held at the request of the sponsors. This concludes the rules hearing, and I want to thank all my colleagues for their participation. I want to thank my colleague, Catherine Gilmer Richardson, for good work on this bill. And thank you, everyone, and everyone will have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Thank you.